A grounded plane. Air France, the French flagship, a symbol of elegance and the art of living, has been expelled from Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. Meanwhile, in Paris they're talking about langoustines with caviar lemon, 3-star chefs, and desserts that sparkle like jewels. Why this deafening silence about a geopolitical debacle? Who benefits from hiding this slap in France's face? And did you know that behind your in-flight meal at 30,000 feet, a war of influence, a clash between nations is unfolding before your eyes? Today we're not just telling you an aviation story. We're diving into the heart of a crisis that reveals everything about a changing world, a faltering France, and a rebelling Sahel. This topic burns, it disturbs, because it strikes at the core of North-South relations, economics, sovereignty, and the future. It's the story of an airline losing its wings, but also of a country losing its aura. And what if Air France's downfall was a symptom of a broader collapse, of a world order cracking? If you're not subscribed yet, you're missing out on essential news. To stay informed, you just need to be in the right place. And that place is here on the Carlos Lucas channel. So click, subscribe, and stay awake. It's June 2025, and Air France is making headlines. But not for the reasons you might think. The airline, the embodiment of French chic, associated with smiling flight attendants and polished ads, is proudly announcing a revamp of its long-haul menus. They're talking about 3-star chefs, Arnaud Lallemand crafting langoustines with creamy sauce and caviar lemon for La Première Suite, Régis Marquand preparing a trio of Camargue rice with carrot orange sauce in business class, Frédéric Simonin delighting premium passengers with tomato shrimp and squid ink rice. They're touting 100% French local products, sustainably sourced meats and fish, vegetarian options to check the eco-friendly box. Everything is perfect, calibrated, almost too good to be true. Press releases drip with superlatives, the dish photos are drool-worthy, and major media outlets relay the news as if it's the story of the century. But while they're selling you this gastronomic dream, a bomb is quietly exploding. Air France has been kicked out of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. Not a single blue-white-red plane in the skies of these three countries. Bamako, Ouagadougou, Niamey, doors closed. And curiously, French newspapers barely mention it. Why? Because this slap hurts. Because it reveals a truth they'd rather keep quiet. Since 2022, the Sahel has been in turmoil. Military juntas that seized power in Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger have decided to cut ties with France. It all started with the expulsion of French troops from Mali in August 2022 after years of military presence under the pretext of fighting terrorism. Burkina Faso followed in January 2023, ordering Paris to withdraw its forces. Then Niger, in August 2023, ended military cooperation, expelling French soldiers and denouncing agreements deemed unfair. But it's not just about military bases. These countries want nothing that bears France's imprint, and Air France, with its planes connecting Paris to Sahelian capitals, became a target. In 2024, Malian, Burkinabe and Nigerian authorities suspended the airline's flights, accusing it of being a tool of neo-colonialism. According to a March 2025 report by the African Institute for Strategic Studies, this decision cost Air France roughly $120 million in direct losses in 1 year, not counting collateral damage to its trade routes to other African countries. Losing the Sahel means losing a strategic hub, an economic crossroads, a gateway to the continent. Yet not a word from Air France about this crisis. No press conference, no official explanation. Instead, they serve you Parmesan ravioli and caramel chocolate desserts by Angelo Musa. Does that seem normal to you? A national flagship gets booted from 3 countries and all they talk about is gastronomy. Doesn't that raise red flags? This silence isn't innocent. Air France isn't just an airline. It's a symbol, a standard bearer of French influence. In the Sahel, its planes didn't just carry passengers, they carried businessmen, diplomats, goods, ideas. They embodied a France that for decades saw itself as an indispensable power in Africa. But that era is over. The juntas in power, backed by an angry youth, reject this model. In the streets of Bamako, Ouagadougou and Niamey, people aren't protesting against flight attendants or pilots. They're protesting a system, Françafrique. You've probably heard the term. It refers to the opaque networks, exploitative economic deals and controversial military interventions that have sustained French influence in Africa since decolonization. Air France, with fares unaffordable for 90% of Malians or Nigerians, became a symbol of this old order. A Bamako-Paris round trip cost at least $1,000 in 2024, while the average monthly salary in Mali is $70. Can you imagine the gap? For many, Air France represents the France of elites, the one that profits, the one that dominates, and in 2025, that France is no longer welcome. So how does Air France respond? It shifts the battlefield. Since it can't fly to the Sahel, it bets on its global image. And here, the strategy is almost Machiavellian in its finesse. By partnering with three-star chefs and boasting local sustainable products, Air France sells an idealized France. Refined, prestigious, eco-conscious. It's soft power at its purest. While they talk about langoustines and Corsican candied citrus cakes, they divert your attention from closed airports, millions lost, and crumbling diplomatic ties. This culinary offensive is a way of saying, look, we're still here, we embody excellence, but excellence for whom? For the wealthy La Première passengers paying $10,000 for a round trip, for business class executives. Meanwhile, on the ground, the reality is far less glamorous. Air France is also a struggling company. In 2020, the French state injected $7 billion to save it during the COVID crisis. In 2024, unions decried job cuts and deteriorating working conditions, and environmentally, aviation remains a disaster. A 2024 Climate Action Network study estimated that Air France's long-haul flights emitted 12 million tons of CO2 annually. So when the airline talks about sustainable menus, French meats, and responsibly sourced fish, what is it? Greenwashing? Culinary patriotism? Or a desperate attempt to paper over the cracks? Look elsewhere and you'll see others doing better. Take Ethiopian Airlines. In 2024, it carried 17 million passengers compared to Air France's 15 million on African routes. Why? Because it embodies a pan-African vision unburdened by colonial history. Its Addis Ababa hub has become a continental crossroads, attracting passengers from across Africa. Turkish Airlines too is expanding flights to Africa without France's geopolitical baggage. Meanwhile, Air France drags the image of a fading power's flag bearer. And it's not just about image, it's about money, power, influence. The Sahel is a resource reservoir. Uranium in Niger, gold in Mali, cotton in Burkina Faso. According to Jeune Afrique in April 2025, French exports to these three countries dropped 45% since 2022. Losing these markets is a blow to Air France and an entire French economic ecosystem. And as France retreats, others advance. Russia signed a 2024 deal with Niamey for regular Aeroflot flights. China is funding airports in Burkina Faso. The void left by Air France is quickly filled, and France loses ground in a region critical for geopolitics and resources. But this isn't just about money or international rivalries, it's a human story. In the Sahel, youth are on the front lines. Under 25s make up 60% of the population in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. They want no part of a France that dictates terms. On social media, hashtags like No More Françafrique or Sovereignty now ignite debates. These young people want fair partnerships, investments that benefit their countries, not foreign multinationals. Expelling Air France is a symbolic but powerful gesture. In the short term, it means fewer flights, less connectivity to Europe. For local elites, that's a problem. They enjoyed their Paris trips for business or vacations, but for the majority, it's a signal of hope, a way to say, we're taking back control. In the medium term, these countries turn to other partners, Turkey, Russia, China, but also regional players like Morocco or South Africa. In the long term, an entire model is at stake. France must rethink its role in Africa. Banking on prestige with starred chefs and universalist rhetoric won't cut it. New generations in Africa and France want substance, mutual respect, balanced exchanges, cooperation free of domination. And for the French, the impact is subtler but real. Air France is a national pride, but also a company propped up by public funds. If losses pile up, who pays? You, me, taxpayers? In 2025, a Paris-Dakar round trip averages $800, out of reach for many, and environmentally the question is unavoidable. Air France can tout sustainable menus, but aviation remains a top polluter. A 2024 Transport and Environment report estimated Air France's emissions accounted for 2% of France's total. So when the airline sells local products and anti-waste menus, what is it? A drop in a CO2 ocean, a distraction from real issues? And you? Are you still surprised? Do you really believe a caramel chocolate dessert will erase millions of tons of carbon or millions of euros in losses? What's at play here is more than a corporate crisis. It's a mirror of France-Africa relations reflecting an uncomfortable image. For centuries, France imposed its laws, companies, culture. Today, the Sahel says enough, and Air France with its starred menus is just a pawn on this chessboard. This culinary offensive is an attempt to save face, to maintain an illusion of grandeur. But illusions don't last. The world is changing, and those clinging to the past risk falling. Air France's expulsion from the Sahel marks the end of an era, the twilight of a France that thought it could set the rules forever. So ask yourself, who benefits from this staging? Who wants us to swallow that everything's fine? Share this. Talk about it. Tell us what you think, because the story doesn't end here, and neither do we.